Welcome to Common Unity. I'm Jason Fox.
And I'm Dr. Gabriel Lewis. And we are bringing the community together with a common unity.
Maybe I'm going to bomb it tonight.
No, not even.
We'll find out. All right, so we'll get into it. We'll get into it, shall we?
Okay.
Welcome back to Common Unity. Today we've got a young girl that I met probably 2-3 years ago, I'm thinking. Was looking at buying a business at the time, and I thought, fuck, what a go-getter. And I followed her from a distance and seen what she's done over the last couple of years, and she's done far more than I had any understanding of. So today we've got Virginie. Did I nail it? I did nail
it. Somewhat. We're far off, I'm surprised.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Just butchered your name, sorry. But yeah, welcome.
It's all good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on. I keep
Anytime, I was
saying,
looking
but
forward to it.
we've had a great conversation already, so it's got high
Got to keep going.
high energy. I have to say.
Yeah, about an hour of conversation, so we've got half the podcast done without the
Sorry.
cameras on.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
So what brings you here to this place in Tauranga?
Literally? Okay, so my family moved from France to New Zealand to Wellington. And we're there for 10, 12 years or something. And then we came up here, or my family came up, and I had my own stuff going on in Wellington, and I just didn't know what to do next. I literally had no idea what to do next. So I just came up, visited for a while, and just ended up going from little job to little job until I stumbled into basically this business that that Jason knows about. So it was just this weird journey of just moving from one thing to the next. I had no idea what I was doing. I think I always knew I wanted to pursue business. That was just something I always inherently felt like I was drawn to that.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I was doing. But I found myself in theory, looking back, dead-end jobs, shitty ass jobs. But every time I was working somewhere, I always picked something up. And I always was like, oh, okay, well, this is really interesting, and I picked up on this, and these systems are fucking terrible, and that's not going to work, and why don't they do this? And no one wanted to listen. Management, they didn't care, or whoever it was. Some people were amazing and some people were just not good. And I think I started getting this frustration built up. I was like, if you have this opportunity and you own a business, why would you not, do whatever you can with it? So I think when I got stuck in up here, literally just visiting and was working, and I'm a real worker, I wouldn't just bum around. I was always I worked in a butcher all day long, early till late. Then I went waitress afterwards, was doing that, grinding, and then just end up staying. And then from there, meeting people, networking, learning more about whatever it was, businesses and stuff, and then just kept ticking. And then obviously I'm stuck here now.
Yeah.
And it's grown on me heaps. When I left Wellington, it was so different. What Wellington's like. It's big, it's kind of arty, cultural, a bit more worldly. Yeah, it's just really fucking different. And I'm not a surfy, that's not really me. I'm city and farmy, not fucking a cruiser down with down the mount with a fucking surfboard or a skateboard. So it was really weird, the transition. And everyone that comes here, which I'm sure you guys would agree with, would be it's so cliquey. And I hate to fall into that excuse almost, but it was really cliquey, and it was fucking hard moving here, meeting friends and whatever. But my closest friends to this day that I have are the friends I met working in my dead-end jobs, which is hilarious to me. So yeah, just ended up staying here and just literally tried to make the best of it.
Yeah. What's the worst job you've done? I always like knowing this answer.
I'm not answering that. One funny job. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I worked for the census. This is the best boss I've ever had. He was so fucking cool. So I was actually telling my partner about this recently. So he actually had a son who committed suicide. I didn't realise this so it was quite dark. But there was something about him, you could see it in his eyes. He was just a really kind man, and someone as a female that you would feel safe around. He was great with training, whatever. So I'm working for the census, doing basically really, basic things, simple things. And he one day was I'd finished everything I needed to do, but I was contracted out for a certain time, or, for however long it was, months or whatever. And I just had nothing left to do. I'd done all of it probably way too quickly. And I was just sitting there. So I said to him, can I bring my sewing machine in? I no shit bought in my dog, put her bed down, Tess was there. I was sewing my kid clothes on the job, on the clock, taxpayer dollars. The whole thing, I know it sounds probably dumb, but I look back and I'm some of the jobs I've ended up and all landed were just so funny. I was how the fuck did he took me out for lunch on my birthday. He was so cool. And I think I went and worked at Spark a year later or whatever. And he came in and we like had a real big chat and a catch up, and like he was just a fucking cool person. I think it was really nice meeting someone who, and he was really intelligent too. So he had a huge like avocado orchard and he was a consultant of sorts, but he was just sort of like running the show. So anyway, but it was just nice meeting, again, same old thing, a really cool, I hate to say cool person, but a really interesting person. And the fact that on my birthday, that's when, of course, me being me, I asked the wrong fucking question and I was like, why? And he started talking about his son, and that was really interesting too, because I think he had a lot of courage and he actually spoke about it and he was frank about it, but you could see there was still so much like heartache there too.
Yeah.
So that was like heavy, but yeah.
You got to think about it, it's your own child, so if that will last a lifetime, no matter how short it is, but it's cool, takes a lot of courage. Yeah. But
he was one of the cooler bosses, but yeah.
So I don't know, so what do you do now?
So I've got a beauty salon,
which
is now converting to a skin clinic. And then I've got like a sort of property investment company. And that's what I want to be doing just like all of my time, pretty much. And I really want to get into like flipping as well. But yeah. So that's pretty much.
So let's start from the start then. So you purchased Forever Suntans, it was at the time?
Yeah, and then remember the backstory there. So I was working at Spark, and this client comes in, and he's like, sold him he came in for like a case, and I sold him a phone. Had a massive conversation, and like you were saying before, you meet these people, you have really cool conversations and whatever, and delve into their life a little bit. So kind of made that connection there, and it was really weird because I never watch Facebook stories. It's just I don't really go on Facebook much anyway, but more now, not so much back then, but I just never used to watch him. And one day I open it up, I go on a story, and it was him. And we didn't really keep in contact or anything, but just like I happened to be on there. And he was like, I'm looking for a manager. I wanted to get the hell out of Spark. I was like, I'm not having a bar of this. And so I hit him up and I was like, I can manage this place. And then that turned into like an equity management position, which was really cool. And it was just a very, very, very different business. And then over time, just me being me, probably just got carried away with the fairies, and I was like, I want to do this and I want to do this. And he was great in a sense. He was the first person in my life that kind of took me, I guess he took me seriously and was like, okay, well, she clearly has, these ideas or whatever. And he let me do it, which was cool. And so it was fascinating because his story is kind of similar. Like he started with nothing and then started building up like a flipping portfolio. So like busted his ass doing all of that, and then so he got to a point where he had this business that was just choke holding him. It shit as staff. It looked real average. Like I could tell he just fucking wanted out. So when I came along, I was like, sweet, like just hand me the reins and you go and do whatever the hell you want to do. And that's exactly what happened. So I did that for like, I don't even know, like maybe a year or 2 years. And then that's when he absolutely wanted out because like, he was flipping, just at this point had grown so much, he just didn't care about it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that was after the first COVID, because I think maybe when I was talking to you about whatever we're talking about finance and stuff, that it was finance needed this.
Yeah, I thought it was about 2 years ago, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So I just stumbled randomly into this business, and it was funny because everyone told me not to buy it. Everyone fucking told me not to buy it. And if I didn't have that business, there's no way I would have bought the properties that I bought. I couldn't have. It would have been impossible.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I think since I've been little, I've always, I don't know. I think in part, being a female, you don't get taken as seriously at times. And again, I'm not trying to make this a male-female thing in the fucking slightest. Like life is what you make it. But I always felt that. Like you can't be pretty and you can't be smart at the same time. That's the vibe I always got just from people in life. Yep. So I feel like I was always like scrapping to like be like, even just have to fucking prove myself to be like, I want to do this. I used to feel stupid saying this. Now I feel like I can be like, oh, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. It's still to this day, I get funny about it because it's just such an ingrained thing. Yes. So I feel like I was scrapping and this guy's just there and he's just real chill and he's like, yeah, sweet, go for it. And I thought it was a joke. I thought he was taking the piss out of me or was like waiting for me to fail. But the whole time he was like, no, that's cool, go for it. And
you probably would have actually thought that's actually a good idea. Cool.
Yeah, but I mean, back then, like self-limiting beliefs, right? Self-doubt. And I had everyone around me being like, that's a bad time. It's just been COVID. Don't buy it. Da, da, da. So I was like, in part, like one part of me just doesn't give a flying fuck about what anyone says, probably to a really dangerous, risky degree, which, that sure. And then the other side of me is just so conditioned that I'll be like, oh, you know, you take it on board, and at the time you think it's great, and you go home and you sit on it and you're like, oh, and that's when you start stressing out and getting a bit nervous about whatever the opportunity is and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. So what's some things you've learned while owning it yourself?
A massive question. Cash flow. That's a boring answer.
Well, that's
but it's an important answer, and it's
so.
a very fucking psychological answer too, because I enjoy meeting people that own businesses, and if you get to know them and you kind of start understanding really what their position is and cash flow position, you suss out very quickly what they're like as people, which is me. I went in there and I was like, I'm going to do this, and didn't like blow all my money, but fuck, like I went heavy on like the expenses. You know, and again, like not too heavy. I think I'm probably quite hard on myself, but definitely I could have tailored shit a lot fucking more, and I didn't. Yeah. I just was like, I'm going to do this. So I think I've learned far more to take a step back and be far more calculated and go, okay, and this is where instant gratification comes in, just in life in general, let alone in business. Like if you fall for that like shiny object syndrome trap, which is exactly what I was in, and you don't like pace yourself basically, and it's almost like a self-respect thing too. I think you just want to like do everything so fast and do well and whatever, but then you turn around and like, who the fuck are you doing it for? Like for them or for you? And when you start thinking about if you want to do it for you, that's when you like step back a bit. So I guess that would be the boring answer, is probably like cash flow. What else have I learned? Literally what you said, fucking amazing conversation, like network. The people in my life to this day, apart from some of the closest friends that I've met from the den jobs, have been from the salon. I'm talking people fucking like old ass guys like my granddad now, like in the 80s, like gold teeth, fucking own boats, like massive ship, you know, they're like running around rugged as, loaded. But it's so humble, modest, you would never know they've got anything, who come in, give me the time of day, have long conversations, like just look out for me in general, like how's things going, how's business, like how's property, you know, like have you got a partner yet? Like why the fuck not? Like, you know, just whatever. People that actually give a fuck. Yep. And if you know, everyone's families are different, but if you don't have that grandfather figure or whatever, for me, I've always loved the idea of that, and it's not, you know, so I think you meet just certain people that are just fucking awesome, that really, really look after you, and they like want the best for you, you know?
Yeah, we've talked about this quite a lot, is that successful people actually want to share their information, and that everyone wants to see everyone go well. Like no one's like, no, if you get yours, I miss out on mine. We can all rise together.
That's where insecure people, you pick those ones out, and you learn as you climb, you sniff that out very quick, and then you kind of...
But those people aren't the successful ones generally. Unfortunately, it's the people down the bottom that are trying to pull the others down to keep them at their level. Yeah. Which is what we're about. We keep talking about it, you know, it frustrates me because there's enough for everyone. I think if you average out all the money in the world, there's like $7 million per head for everyone, you know, but it would still flip back to the way it is probably within 12 months because people don't have that financial...
But this is the thing, is everything's like almost an intellectual game as well as like a psychological game, right? Like it's all about your mind. And so that's exactly it. I think you reach, and I'm not trying to sound wanky here, but you reach any point, everyone's point is different of maybe like realization or whatever it is, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. But for me, I hit a certain point where I started kind of actually taking myself seriously, because I was like, I now understand I don't need fucking anyone's validation. So when someone comes to you and just on the off chance you share your goal, your vision, your knowledge or whatever, and they cut it down, you're like, okay. And you suss that out very, very fast. You just learn to like hold back a little bit instead of blurting things out as much, you know.
And it's like James said the other day, when you got that much going on, it's hard to hear anyone else because you're just focused on what you're doing. Cool, you say what you got to say because I've got this to do this afternoon, though. I'm not getting caught up in your comments.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is great for your own mental health.
Yeah.
Because you see... I was just going to say, because you see a lot of the people that have got the mental health issues are doing nothing with their time on the couch, poor me, the world, all the rest. And it can be solved by just doing something.
Yeah, like we've had another guest, Ryan, on, and we were talking privately at a conversation, and he did this post with regards to, he's huge in the mental health space, and he's actually just gotten a $20,000 grant for the work he's doing, which is huge. But he was on the page and he was like, look, if you can really actually just one thing you can do, just get your body moving to help your mental health
Yeah,
and do it. And then
sure.
he got cut down by the knees. Well, not everybody can do that. And I'm like, well, you've got both 2 feet, you can go, and this is how I've described it to some clients, that getting moving is such a big ordeal. I was like, just get out before you walk inside, just walk down to the letterbox. Then the next time, walk down to the lamppost, just so you're getting it ingrained in your brain where you're moving your body. It starts to become a pattern. And unfortunately, this person, for them, wanted to chop him down as well about the conversation when he was only trying to spreading positivity
sure.
as well. So you got to think about it. Everybody's in a different place too. Yeah, big time. So what's some learnings that you learnt when you were younger? So you grew up in Wellington?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably ties in with what I said before. It's annoying when you say it out loud. It sounds so stupid and so cheesy, but honestly, if someone says you can't do something, you're almost pushing in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've always had this probably really stubborn streak, and again, maybe it's like an element of like spite or whatever, but for whatever reason, and again, now that's transformed into like a positive sense of energy or flow of energy into like business and property or whatever. But back then it was just this like almost very resistance filled like force, and you just feel so like cut down. So I think that would be the biggest thing. If someone tells you can't do whatever it is, just fuck it, you know. And my mum, it was funny, she used to have literally just the biggest fuck it attitude sometimes, and it was so fucking uplifting.
Cool.
Like she'd just be like, you know, for literally anything, whatever it was, she'd be like, who cares? Whatever. And it was just so like you built this massive thing up on your head, even in your heart, and you feel so compressed. And she'd be like, who? And, you know, and just would not care. And I was like, oh, like, you know, I've always kind of to a degree held on to that and found that really good. So I think I try and like retreat back into that sort of like almost state of mind or thought or memory or whatever.
Yeah, well, when you're younger, you can often blow things way out of proportion because A, you've got hormones, and B, it's the biggest deal to you as well.
But then I think there's so
older.
much riding on life these days as like when you're older too. So I think it's correct on both in the both senses of you know. So young and older. So yeah. Yeah,
definitely. I would 100% agree. Yeah.
I think that would probably be the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And what kind of interests do you do outside of your work and business?
I'm a bit of a weirdo. I love like adrenaline. I think.
I can get that though. You're quite high energy though. So by being,
it's weird. I've got like the half. I'm very polarized in like my personality. So I think sometimes I love dead, calm, quiet, and then other times like I don't know what the fuck or where this came from. Much to my mother's dismay, but like. Even my brothers and things. I love motorbikes. I don't understand why. I'm not massively mechanically minded. I just love them. And so I got eventually when I was it would have been like maybe 3 or 4 years ago or something, I got into motocross. Not hardcore or anything, but I fucking loved it. Like trail riding, hitting the tracks and stuff. Like I just loved it. Everything from like loading your bikes up, tying them down. I had a Hilux, like I fucking loved my truck. That was my thing. That was my first step towards basically being fully like independent and being like, fuck everyone. I'm going to drive this truck, whatever. So it was real cool. So got the truck, got the bike. And for me at the time, I was like, oh my God, like I've gone and spent X amount of dollars on this bike. Like for me then, it was a massive deal. Yeah, I was like, holy shit. Like, it was a big deal for me. Like I was like, it was delayed gratification for fucking years. Like I left my last relationship with the son's dad. Like I was in debt. I had no money. I was so lucky that I had like financial support from my parent. Well, like if I needed it, it was there. Like I wasn't going to like starve on the street situation. But so getting to that point where I could buy my bike was like a huge thing. It was stupid, but that was my so bikes are awesome. I love road bikes. And what else do I like to do? Oh, I do a lot of hunting, like horse riding, like hunting with hounds, if you've seen that. Yeah. No one fucking knows what this is, and it's so frustrating. I don't know why.
I've got a client that does it.
Oh, really? Who?
Yeah.
You can't tell me, of course, You have to tell me afterwards, I probably know them, because if they're from this region, they'll be hunting. So that's really cool. But like I was saying, before I stopped drinking, we're just going to get quite drunk and do the go hunting,
Yeah,
basically.
cool.
Because everyone's got their flights, you're riding around. And it's not about that, of course,
No,
but
no,
it's a
it's
massive
about
part of like the camaraderie and
A
stuff.
lot of it's about the horse riding aspect as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
Not actually of the hunting, but it's just
Yeah.
the jumping the fences,
Yeah.
doing the things, the camaraderie, the teamwork.
It's one of my favourite things. It's a massive day, like you're up like at the crack of dawn, go out to the horses, which is no matter where you live, like usually you're driving out however long to get there.
Yeah.
Then you have to get them ready. Then you have to load them up. And then you have to go and drive an hour and a half, an hour and a half, 2 hours even, maybe even longer depending on when you're going, by 10 or 11. And then you have like the breakfast and you sit there and you all gather around. You've got the hounds all up in the truck, and then it's very like etiquette orientated. So you've got your master and your huntsman and the jackets and it's very like thing. And that took me years. And I feel like I'm a confident person. It took me years to get the balls to be like comfortable around everyone.
Yeah.
Like and you're dealing with like gruff old Kiwi farmers like that sort of know.
Really? Yep.
Yeah. So it's quite like, and I didn't have any family that hunted or anything. So you've got these families, they've got like family trees of
Years
fucking
of it, yeah.
generations
Yeah.
of hunting and stuff. So
So have you got a horse?
no, not now. Not now.
had
So I
one?
bought one in Tauranga, when I worked at New World.
Oh, good jobs
Yeah.
though.
I got fired. No, I didn't actually get fired from there. Almost got fired. I had some funny jobs.
That's all
I
right.
flooded their laundry multiple times.
I think all these odd and awkward jobs is always a good thing to have.
100% is, honestly. That's the thing. I always got on so well with like the HR and the staff. Like she'd sit me down and be like, oh, again? I'm sorry. Like I hadn't counted the cash properly. Like wouldn't take off my fake nails. I swore at a customer once, but it wasn't actually
Couldn't see that, surely.
I didn't actually swear at them. I happened to stumble across there's one person that goes in who's literally mentally ill, but not enough, like not schizophrenic, or just a little bit delayed, but comes across relatively normal. Happened to be on the wrong, like woke up on the wrong side of the bed, not for me, for them, and they just had to go, and I said shit in front of them. And I got bailed up, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, and it was quite funny as well, because I've still to this day got the letter from like the disciplinary letter, and I think they asked me, and they're like, I hear or understand that you've sworn in front of this customer, and I was like, yeah, I did. Straight away was like, yeah. No fucks given.
Yeah. You should frame it and put it in your office one day.
That's my intention, full intention. Yeah. I've got two of them.
I started from the bottom now. I'm here.
Yeah, literally. And do you know the irony is I'm really close with the owners of New World. They are fucking good business people, those two. They are cool people, great people in general, let alone business people. They're just awesome people. Yep. So I really like them. I literally was just chatting to him on the phone the other day. I was like asking him questions and just catching up and stuff. So yeah, funny how life swings full. So I honestly thought in that job I was going to be like a dead end loser for the rest of my life. I was so didn't think life was going to go anywhere. So it was just random. But
So would you consider them kind of as mentors?
Oh,
for you?
fucking 100%. Yeah, 100%. The Brendan who owns New World out in Brookfield there, he is an absolute shark. Like he's very clever with how he runs things. And again, what I like about him, what resonates with me is detail. He wants the girls like this amount of jewellery, like maybe not to that exact degree, but I remember having to have very specific a get up and whatever for the uniform and stuff, which is fantastic. I think that's great. But a lot of people just don't care enough about that. They don't see that. Even with their systems, with HR, which is everything about the way that supermarket operates is like, honestly, I've gone into other New Worlds that weren't as good, Yeah.
The details do matter. Like I've had when we've been trialling people and stuff, and they've been like, look, we expect this. We're not hard with etiquette, but we need a particular style of etiquette. Like my team, I've never had to tell once. I just say, hey, this is the blanket, this is what I expect, this is what we expect, and they do.
Do you say that in the beginning to them?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And
what if they start slipping? Have any of them started slipping?
Not my team, but I've had previous people that have had on, and the difference it makes is just crazy. Like say for example, like we're a practice, okay, we've got family and like respectable, like we don't need a Saturday dress, because then it changes the energy of the place. And
I like how you put that. It was very well crafted. It changes the energy of the place.
Yeah, it just changes the energy of the place. Then you get like males that you go start saying comments that not in a night. It's just like it's my team and staff, and I don't even want to. It's like no, so like yeah, so I just don't even want to get into that aspect. So we nip in the butt, but I've got a phenomenal team. They don't do that. Yeah, so they wouldn't do that.
It takes I feel like that is probably all from you though. I mean, you've grown that and you've taught that and you've sort of entrenched that in them. People don't just turn up and exactly. They turn up respectful. Some people do short, but generally speaking, if people can slack off, they will slack off.
Yeah.
That's you continually trying to instill that sense of pride and respect and space.
We're all on the same mission, so the team has to be on the same place and everything when where we're coming from. So if we're all on the same mission to really help people, and if it's adding to that mission, everybody kind of naturally does it, which is great. So I found that's been a big
follows
thing.
the pathway.
Yeah, which has been cool.
So have you done something in Forever Suntanes that's similar? You've got values for your staff?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's one thing I'm working on at the moment is a really a very very specific and detailed policies, processes, procedures manual.
Yep.
That because this is the thing, you can have an onboarding manual, and this I want to compile it all specifically, and have obviously different little compartments in there, but I want to have a very thorough manual that has everything together, and I've got bits and pieces in my Dropbox everywhere. Well, not every, but it's all roughly done. Wow. But you constantly are updating it and having to add to it. It's a never because everything that can happen. Exactly. Systems change all the fucking time. Yeah. You can't just have a system and then boom. And this is what businesses, where they fail, where they fall down, because they think that they can bang together just because they have to, out of almost principle. They'll be here's a little manual that's 5 little pages, and it's just, that just straight away screams to me, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to sit down and just, I sat my girls down. I was I want Hilton vibes, Hilton reception vibes. I don't want, and again, this might be hypocritical coming from me, if I hear one swear word in front of a client, I will fucking
it sounds quite hypocritical.
I think we've been clocking the tally on it.
I polish up though. I know when to switch it on. I know when to switch it on and off, what's appropriate and what's not. Anyways, but I think if I caught staff just even saying yeah, nah, dunno, I've said that to them. You cannot say that. Yeah. I don't know. Proper grammar, proper spelling in emails. Look at people in the eye when you address them. When they walk in, you have a few seconds, actually address them. Don't just sit there, hi, no. And again, the beauty industry is so, I don't know about you guys, especially as males. Even for me, funnily enough, I never really had anything to do with the beauty industry growing up. Not really. I loved, I had a knack for doing nails, makeup, but I never actually went in all the time to salons, ever.
Yeah.
So when I started to, I just noticed so much fluffy shit, and you'd go in and they were so snobby or a bit intimidating, and and they didn't give a fuck, some of them. You'd walk in there and they'd literally just be hi, and just, and you feel, oh God,
up and down. Yeah.
That's a bit of a fuck you. And you're well, actually, fuck you. I'm here paying you money to whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to create the most comfortable, inviting, uplifting, but also honest space. I mean, I've had some funny conversations with clients where if they've asked me a question, I've absolutely answered it, and they're oh, but they appreciate it. And from that, you gain trust. Yeah, and every director out there, every CEO or boss will be you have to create trust. Yeah, but do you know how to really do that? Yeah. You can't just say you know how to create it by being nice, or no one likes nice. Nice is nice is a lie. You want to be honest with people, and they will trust that they won't go back on that. So I think, just that really welcoming vibe, and even the uniforms. So I've got these nice little uniforms, and wear these nice little dresses, and I got these gold name tags, engraved them in slanted writing. So everything I could do. And you've got to remember the corner, you haven't actually physically been in, right? But you've seen, so Grange Road, it's a corner block of shops, old ass building. I'm glued in the middle there. It used to be super rough, and over time I've renovated it. But I've got literally, so we've got tagging around the building. We've got Indian takeaways, a fucking gambling cruisers bar with a Z.
Yeah.
It's heavy going out there. It's not, it's not ideal.
Most glamorous part of town.
No, but it's funny though, because it's in Pillins Point in Matua, so it's a beautiful area, but it's just that happens to be so I wanted to create almost, again, as a spiteful fuck you, no, you can go from that area and walk in and just be like in a little haven.
Well,
That's
you know
I wanted.
what that will naturally do, make everybody around you up their game too.
Hope
And
so.
actually, over time, you do it well
Yeah.
enough, they'll start actually. How about I paint the front of the store and do those
Yeah.
little things because, hey, that's doing well, and then they start to see, whoa, that's got a little leg
for
room,
sure,
and they
for
start elevating everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a new little like laundromat around the corner, which is cool. And it's so weird because it used to be a baby shop. And again, customer service, I went in there. That was super cunty. I was like, that's a baby shop. How can you go wrong in a baby shop? So anyhow, they sold and there was this free space and I was desperate to start a laundromat. I don't know why. I just had a thing in my head. I was like, I want a laundromat. And someone had already taken the lease over and I had a bit of a run-in from the lady who owned cruises. So I just found her real rude. And anyway, I said to her though, I was like, oh, because they owned the space at the time. I was like, can I take up the space? She's like, no, it's getting leased out. And I was like, oh, fuck, who to? Fucking laundromat. And I was like, oh my God, I was so onto something. And I was so frustrated. I was so close. And that's what happens when you sit on stuff, you know. You don't get anywhere. You just, what are ideas,
Have
right?
these ideas, you got to action them, eh?
No, it's nothing, but it's good. So they've cleaned up. So there's someone whoever the owner is, it's nice and tidy. The Indian place, don't know much about them. Cruises is fucking Jesus. It is what it is. Like what, you know.
Yeah.
If it was me, I'd keep it exactly the same, but just newer.
Yeah.
Like it is literally what it is. You don't want to make it something it's not. It's awesome in a sense. Like it's very authentic, but you could tidy it up a bit. And the guy who's just bought the dairy is so cool. Him and his wife, his baby, just really like trying to work hard, doing everything they can to just make it a tiny bit better. And so that's cool. So I think that is definitely happening slowly, but you still get idiots tagging everywhere. I had someone tag in gold on the wall and it made me laugh. I storied it. I put it on my story. I was like, whoever did this, thank you for actually doing it in gold and being somewhat like aligned with how, like
on brand.
Pretty much. I was like,
It's
well,
about taking
could have been red, could have been like, you know, black or I don't know, something that just would look shit. But yeah, maybe laugh it was gold. So there you go.
It's quite cool actually, taking the gratitude into everything.
Yeah, we had, honestly, and so many people replied to that story.
Yeah.
They just laughed. They were like, what the fuck? I had a client message me and be like, do you want me to come and clean it for you and paint it? And I was like, yeah. She wanted to because she cared that much. And you could see it like, you know, semi-pissed me off but made me laugh. But, you know, she wanted to come and help. It was really cute.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was like, okay.
Well, you know, you've got a community there when they value your space, when they're like, hey, you know, which is the main thing when you're actually going out and trying to actually impact people's lives and make a change. It's cool, and people might think it's just the beauty industry, but you're really connecting with people. Yeah, cool.
You would know with that too. I think people spill their, like the things you learn.
Oh, hugely.
My God.
Yeah, hugely.
I'm like, I should not be privy to this information. I love it.
Yeah.
I would never, ever tell a soul. But I'm sometimes I'm like, well, good Lord, you know.
Yeah, I was actually had an old fella that came in on Monday. He was like, man, some people would tell you some stuff. I was like, yeah, but guess what? It's just between me and them.
Yeah.
Like I don't gossip. It's what they share with me. I don't share with anybody else at all.
It's almost insightful as well.
Yeah.
Like I pull things, even if it's someone's like really fucked up situation or whatever, you can still pull things from it as well. So I think that's always.
It can be exhausting too, though. We've talked about that a lot.
Yes,
like you,
the energy. Oh my God.
yeah, you take that home. You're like, oh, those conversations I've had today, like they bring you down to their level almost at times. Yeah, you got to go.
But that's the thing. That's your like energetic frequency, right?
Yeah.
If someone's coming in, especially complainers, that's very different. But to a degree, if you have stuck with one for an hour, like you're fucked. Like it's a very tiring thing. You're just like, oh.
I've got a trick. It's actually really good. Like I've got a personality for
your clients are probably sitting there like, what?
No, my clients know it. I'm straight up honest with them. I'm like, and people know I make tons of jokes. There's lots of laughter in the practice and everything when it comes in. But I've got this thing, and sometimes yes, I see people in there and a ridiculous amount of discomfort initially, and sometimes it's just their discomfort that's just really off, but sometimes it's their mood. So what I'll do is on those visits when I'm first initially meeting them, I'll actually crack more jokes than what I naturally would, and my jokes are naturally pretty bad. So
agreed.
So why do you crack them?
Agreed.
Funny.
Funny for who?
That's the whole point of a joke. If it's not making yourself laugh, what's the point? Like, my jokes are for me, not for anybody else. So I'll crack more jokes on purpose, so they'll actually realise, like, oh, this guy's actually kind of funny.
You just have to keep pushing it.
But you just go
that
through.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they go, hey, this isn't the right chiropractor for me. And guess what? I'm absolutely okay with that because, and I guarantee it, out of 99 new patients that I might crack more jokes than what I naturally would. I don't always do, but I'd get one that it really rubbed the wrong way. And guess what? I'm not the right chiropractor for them, and that's absolutely fine. So it's when you're trying to cater to everybody by pulling on your own energy, that's when you start to feel quite depleted as a giving service. So I'm not trying to cater to anybody. I'm just being myself, and I think that's very important.
Make it work,
yeah. Especially when you're in that high energy role. I think it's a little bit tricky for Jason as well. He's dealing with people's finances and stuff, and it's a very...
That would be hard.
Yeah, I've had quite a few
God.
like suicide, I'm going to kill myself type conversations and stuff. Yeah, quite common.
Surely not.
Yeah.
I would believe
A few as in literally just a few, or a few as in like common, like over...
It's not common, like probably once every sort of 6 months a comment will come
That's
up.
fairly,
But you got to remember,
it's
like...
a bit weaponised too. But
but you got to remember, like, people come to you in their darkest hour because they're like, well, I'm going to lose my house, or I can't pay my staff, or all sorts of stuff. And like, fix it. Well, I can't fix it because you're not trading well enough.
But you've got that like fresh, maybe not necessarily answers straight off the bat, but you've got that fresh line of thought to what you do. They're coming because they're literally maybe rock bottom point almost, you know. So for them in that state of mind, like it's stress central, and they can't almost see rationally or see clear.
That's why I've got the other business happening, so I can alleviate some of this stuff,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I understand
I can
that.
not be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff anymore. I'll be at the top.
Yeah. I think those setting boundaries are so important too. I think I've taught my girls that pretty well. I'd like to say I taught them that very well. Like you can definitely put the conversation between with your clients. You can sort of push it in a certain direction pretty well if you lay that stuff down straight away in the beginning. If you know, and I've got like these like customer like psychological profiles. I've listed the types of like emotions or like the emotive like reactions or responses that would come with this sort of client. So you've got like maybe the super, super busy or like distracted clients. You've got really sensitive, reactive clients. You've got like the really frustrated, like maybe the instant gratification type, want them now for a deal, whatever. Clients. So whatever it may be, and that wasn't a very good description. It was actually a pretty bad description. But
I
basically,
understood though.
The general gist of it, So it's quite like logical. You just give them certain scripts or sort of certain ways of coping with certain clients in the beginning, and you sit them down. I've done this, and again, because it's my business, I can, and I take that for a ride in itself. I will not fucking tolerate the shit I used to tolerate when I started. Like it was a joke. It was so bad. My boundaries were just non-existent. But now you just parent them.
Yeah.
You fucking parent them. They're your children. I'd say that. You're the parent, they're the child almost, in a respectful way. You sit them down, you tell them how everything's going to go. Are they comfortable with this? Is this going to be okay? And then if you take it from there, if there's issues, you sort that out then. You don't wait till the end or,
Yeah.
I think that can
drip in the
apply
bucket.
to, and that can apply to absolutely anything in life, not at all.
Just high communication.
Yeah, and it's funny because people, grown adults, people in their 80s, some people still have not learned. And I think I'm just realising this, just learning now, just starting learning how to communicate properly.
Yeah, and you're still young.
Yeah, but I mean, crazy because I'm 28, right?
Yeah.
So let's just call me 30 for the hell of it.
We'll just round up.
Fucking a third. Pretty much, because I'm a third of the way through my life, and I'm just starting to understand like almost the little subtleties behind conversation and what can go through here and what cannot be said out here all the time, all throughout the day. People are living this shit with financial stress, with a fucking wife or husband, or whatever. So so people are dealing with so much all the time and not even able to
process it.
No, and that's even a separate thing, processing it, but communicating it. I mean, you have to process it before you communicate it, and I think most people can't do that. And this is where fucking instant gratification comes in with drugs and alcohol, which is why I usually don't drink.
Yeah.
Not now anyway.
Yeah.
I just think it's like a danger, unless you're basically really there and you've sorted your shit and you're pretty on with being self-aware and stuff. You you just want to stay away from it, I reckon.
Yeah, if you're drinking for the wrong reasons, like anything, you got to think, okay, what's the reason why I'm drinking? Okay, and then you start going through, and you're like, well, okay, well, I'm actually enjoying it, or I'm doing. But
everyone
this or
enjoys
this.
drinking, though. That's what they tell
Some
themselves.
people don't, but they do it for the sake of it. But it just depends on the reasoning why the core reason is. Like even sometimes I'll be like, I've been in my shed, went to go get a beer. Do I really want this? No, I don't. I'm just picking it up for the sake of it.
Yeah, like a mini
let's put it
conversation
down.
in your head.
And then I'm like, oh, I don't need it. Okay, sweet. Give myself water.
But some people don't even get to that mini conversation.
Yeah.
They don't even get to that or process. Some people do, some people don't. Other people, it just becomes this like habit, it just...
I'd say in New Zealand, it's probably 70% of people don't get to that conversation.
Oh, for sure.
The drinking culture is huge
Scary.
here.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a big drinker. And there's probably been times where I've...
Your pause in your face just then, I'm a big drinker, fuck. Like your just blank expression, like really momentary.
Everyone knows I am. That's fine. But there would have been times where I've come home and I was like, "Fuck, I had a shit day," and the first thing you do is open a beer, and that's the wrong reasons. That's exactly the wrong reasons, right?
But see, have you created some good it sounds so annoying, but coping mechanisms around that? Stop yourself.
Generally, I don't actually get angry anymore. Like I used to, but I've grown up a lot in the last 2 years, which it sounds like you've grown up in the last 2 years. You've just done it 10 years before us or before me. But it's definitely you get home, oh man, you wouldn't believe the day I had, crack a beer. Now all you're doing is enhancing how bad that day was because it's mood enhancer, whether you're on a good buzz, good, bad buzz, bad.
Depressant ultimately. Yeah. And also you're just delaying and distracting what's there.
Yeah, you're just trying to mask over it so you don't have to think about it or,
If you can get to that point though and you understand that, that's a start at least.
Yeah. So what was the decision that made you kind of want to just be you just without like, you know what, like you were saying like I can go out and have like time and nobody would ever know I'm not drinking and I've got really good energy. What kind of made you want to make the decision not to?
I don't know. That's such a fucking boring answer. I feel a buzz when I'm super high energy. Like I feel this weird, almost drug-like. But that's hormones, right? Hormones are responsible for fucking every biological process in the body, basically, or near on. So and it's not all hormonal, of course, it's just general energy. So I feel such a buzz. I don't feel the need. And when I don't feel the need, I notice that. And it's almost like, it's not a turn on, but I'm like, yeah, mean. Like, it's like kudos to me. Like, I can see you're crippled in this area psychologically. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting there psychoanalyzing or I don't give a fuck. But when you do notice it at times, you feel better. And I feel like I've just got so fucking much noise in my head all the time because I'm always thinking about this and this and this and this. Every fucking moment, nighttime, morning, whatever, just every moment in the day. And I think when you can get to that point where you can just look around and go, fuck it, and just have a really good time, have heaps of fun. And also if no one knows, like you're like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
But people are pretty like intense though. They'll be like, why ain't you drinking? Throwing alcohol in your face. Like, no, I don't care, but it's really interesting seeing. It's almost triggering for them. And they want you because they're like, hang on a sec. It's confronting. They don't like it. And they're pushing it. And you're like, well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was funny on New Year's, though. Like, New Year's, I was probably in bed at, like, anywhere from, like, maybe 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. I'm quite, like, again, polarised. Nana, or, like, if I go out, I'll have, like, a big night. But that was, like, really good. Like, I was really good. I was in bed then, totally sober. And I just had no inclination or, like, desire to drink in the slightest. And it was fine. It was all good. But when you're up late anyway, you still feel wrecked. I remember feeling hungover.
It's as bad as a hangover.
Yeah, honestly, it really was. I was really, really tired the next day. Yeah. So,
It's like you can go out and drink, but if you're in bed by midnight, you normally wake up the next day and you're fine. Like, that's why they say nothing good ever happens after midnight. Yeah. Because obviously if you keep drinking, it gets real messy. But even when you have been out sober drive or whatever, 2 o'clock you get home.
Yeah,
you're not doing anything the next day. That disrupted sleep. You haven't got your 8 hours in.
Did you guys know though that from 10? Okay, I have not fact checked.
Yes, is the answer.
10 p.m. to 12 p.m. is your core, or the integral part of your sleep cycle. And apparently, capitalism. This is actually a totally separate topic, but has fucked with our sleep cycles.
Yes.
So humans used to, you may know this, I don't know, but I think the best time that you can get up is from 2 to 4 a.m. and do your shit, and then you can go back to sleep at, say, 9, 10 a.m., whatever, nap an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, you know. You keep going. You can sustain that, that's fine, but people aren't doing that.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to sleep
closed, so
10,
they're not getting
11,
up to do
12,
anything.
1 a.m. Yeah. I have had my night owl errors going to sleep with no shit, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I'm getting up at 6, going to, like, and I did that. I still run off, like, I can function off very little sleep. That's fine by me. I'm not a big sleeper ever, can't sleep in. But generally speaking, people need to sleep in, or they want to sleep in, or they want to have, like, big sleeps. And we're all missing that 10 p.m. till 12 p.m.
They're like your power hours.
Yeah, literally. It's condensed.
So it's almost like you're sleeping 2 hours but getting 4 hours worth of sleep in by just going to bed at those times. It's hugely important. And if you normally go to bed at like 9 and you start going to bed at 8:30, you'll notice the difference too, just from getting those, because each hour on top of that's like more confounding. Oh my God. It just builds. Sorry. I've had a thesaurus mind. Yes, compounds. Oh, yeah. I should remember that. My shed's called the compound. But it's so important. Like I also used to kind of adopt that sleep cycle for when I was studying. So I'd sleep and then set my alarm at stupid o'clock at midnight. And then
Did you actually do that?
Yeah. So and then I'd study throughout the night, then sleep all day.
Did it work?
Yeah, because yeah.
It's all good.
No, I'm like,
Go to bed earlier now and stop texting me at 10:30 at night.
But do you get that weird buzz? Do you guys get that weird buzz where you're up at like 1, 2, 3 a.m. and there's just something, it's just like switched on and you're like ding, and you just feel extra creative, or extra whatever, just basically switched on. I get that so bad.
well, I
So
also
frustrating.
like the fact that I'm up by myself and I'm just completely got alone time. So I've always enjoyed
quiet.
that. But the reason why I like to study was I get distracted very easily. So by studying at that time of the night, I'd get, like, I'm not kidding you, for 1 hour's worth of study, it'd be like 5 hours worth of study. So I'd study for about 4 hours and I'd get
I believe that though.
I'd get so much more study done. So it was as if I was at the uni library for a 10-hour day, 12-hour day from 8 to 8, and I got more study done in those few hours than I did in the entire period, and I actually achieved things and I remembered it too.
But that's a fascinating thing. You know, everyone just thinks you have to be in a library to study well, and that's absolute fucking bullshit. No, you don't. It's all energy dependent. If you're in a space, no matter where the hell you are, I could be like in a restaurant, where just anywhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere where you feel really good.
Yeah. And present.
Your absorption levels of like information are really, really high. That's where you study the best. And that doesn't matter. They can be fucking on a roof. Like, it doesn't, So.
Yeah. I used to get so much done. It was awesome. So you do any education or anything like that?
Do I have any education? Well, I'd fucking hope so.
Well,
I went to school.
School. So this is what I was getting at. So this is one of my biggest points, and this is what I love, that the fact you said you haven't. I've said to so many people and kids and everything, especially younger, unless what you want to do requires going to uni and doing all those things, for me it's like an absolute waste of time. It's got so much information, you've got so many learnings from all those little jobs that you do,
and people
and the people around you. You learn what you want to, learn how you don't want to be practicing, a whole pile of different things. You can learn so much from just taking it in that you don't need to go down that route if you don't know what you want to do.
No, but yes, I was about to fucking hit. I was about
It's true
to
though.
say that. I was about to say that, and just to like interject really quickly, I don't have any regrets, right?
Yeah.
I've always been very proud of the fact that I've never like looked back to that like heavy degree or heavier over degree and been like, oh, I wish I hadn't, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
There's one thing that I get frustrated though at myself with, and that I didn't have the courage to just leave school. And I went to a private school, so then that would have been like a massive like hoo-ha. It would have been like a real like, you know, dramatics. And of course my family, my mum mostly, well, both parents of course, but generally speaking, she was just super active as a mum in my life. And I mean, I never said I wanted to leave school, but I always was like, if I get the fuck out of here. And again, I would like think of like business ideas or want to work with like horses or whatever. Like how, and I don't really care now like how different my life would be, but I would just imagine the creative like freedom you'd even have and the connections you could have made or whatever. Like that's one thing that I do get a bit annoyed about. So I've always thought for Louis, honestly, hand on heart, I do not give a fuck what he wants to do or not who he wants to be, but I mean, if he's following his true purpose, and often people don't know what the heck that is until they're whatever age. If he's following what he thinks his direction is, that is literally all I care about. I will never berate him. Honestly, I'd rather he went and had fun with his friends and had insane energy from that night, goes to school because he's got great energy. He like takes in the information more. He can bang out his homework in like whatever 10 minutes instead of 3 hours because he hates it. You're having fights with your kids. You're all combative. Like I don't want that shit at my house. Like that is so far from what I want. If he wants to go and do, and it's really sad to say this, but if he wants to go and do like woodwork or whatever, things that people deem to be like a lesser topic or subject, I honestly would be like awesome. But go and be the fucking best at it. Like, don't fuck with me,
it's
try
got
hard.
people.
Well, my son's going into college now to do woodwork. He wants to be a builder. I'm like, fucking
Well,
yes,
there you
be a
go.
builder.
That's
you can
the
build
thing.
all our
We're
houses. This
missing
is
trades.
fantastic.
Like, if you want to get this political,
Yeah.
we're missing tradespeople, skilled tradespeople in this country.
Simon Bridges said it to us once in something he was talking about. He said, go down the marina in Tauranga, look whose vehicles are out. All tradies vans with boats on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday.
Oh, there you go.
All the people with the educations, where are they?
Yeah.
Stuck on a salary, working more hours than they're paid for.
If they're lucky to get on a salary, most people can't find jobs, so they've dropped down a rung and they're working in like a sub-level to what they've studied in. Like it's not
But
even the same thing.
even if they make it, they're still on a salary, paid
Well, they're
40
just
hours,
locked in.
working
They're
60
locked in,
hours.
selling their soul, selling their bodies, selling their lives, minds, everything.
Yeah.
I honestly would top myself. No, I'm not. I'm serious. I couldn't do it. I could not live that life ever. I would quite seriously rather be really poor, really, really poor or just, have no money and even just have like a great life with Louis if I'm like home with him all the time because I have no fucking job, but I'm like happy and I would just make the best of my situation in that situation. I could not go and just,
Well, one of our previous podcasts was Jed's podcast, and it was just the take-home message from that was he's just there living his life. He rides BMX professionally for Nitro Circus,
cool.
and he's just doing it. One of the best in the world who's doing it, and he's just pushing boundaries and doing things. And what his overall goal was I just want to be a professional fun haver. And the cool thing about that, for the take-home message from me, was that's exactly what I want to achieve for my children. Just whatever they do, enjoy it and do it well. It's that simple. If you've got those challenges, you can't lose, because it's got people out there making cakes and putting them on YouTube, and they're earning millions of dollars. It's got avenues and a lot of different things that people don't even know.
But even so, though, like when you're saying, have fun and do it well, some don't. It's not necessarily don't want to do it well, but what I was saying about Louis, for example, was like, go and be the best today. That's my competitive nature. Like I'm such a competitive person. It's like go and fucking win or whatever. Even if he doesn't, it doesn't matter. I guess it really comes down to what you're saying, which is
best
literally
of their
authentically,
ability.
just enjoy what you're doing, and if that's like basically fills your cup, great. Because in a world where everything can be had at any moment, any time, any substance, whatever, you can't really buy completion. You can't really do that. And that's the only thing that you can get from yourself. So I'm like, okay, well, if I can somehow teach that and instill that in him, then that's great. But it's fucking hard to do that when you work all the time too. Like it's a really tricky thing. It's just parenting in general. It's like, so we were chatting about this.
So how have you balanced being a mum and a businesswoman? It's challenging for everybody.
I have two answers for that. One is I don't. And the second answer is you create your own schedule. This is my I kind of don't give a fuck attitude. Like I have had to just create this type of lifestyle that I can sustain as best as I can.
Yeah.
To a degree, it will affect him, and it does affect him. It sucks. It actually like tortures me internally. I hate it. He's the happiest kid. He's not this kid with like all these problems, but I can tell that it's gutting for him because he's not probably with me as much as he'd want to be, even though he's all about dad at the moment. But generally speaking, underneath that, of course, they want to be with their mum. Like he had COVID for a week straight recently. Has just gone back to school holidays. I was working full time pretty much. Well, I was always basically tied up. Get home, I've got this call, I've got this agent calling, I've got fucking to do this. Like it's one thing after the other. So it's so hard to be like, you know, trying to basically get somewhere and balance that. Yeah. And the masculine dash feminine energy that you have to interchange constantly. Like to be soft in the property game is basically non-existent. Like that just doesn't happen. It's a very hard thing to master because you'll just get like nailed.
Yeah.
People would just
think female, think, oh, easy ride, let's do this. Yeah.
Like literally, yeah. It's really, really hard. So I think I honestly feel like I have to pull this layer off and to be like soft around him and to even be like, even your voice and it's a really tricky thing. And I think it's almost like a defense mechanism too, because you learn again as a woman to cope in the world in a certain way, unless you've like got a husband who you've been with for a long time, who supports you financially, who always is there to protect you, or whatever. Everyone's situation is so different. But I think as someone who's probably like a really like dominant, like just, you know, I'm like quite outspoken, that's very like sort of frowned upon by some guys and very, and like I rub people up the wrong way sometimes. I fucking love it. It's hilarious. Yeah. You know, it's interesting having those interactions, but it's very hard to switch off sometimes. So you catch yourself being at home and like treating him like a staff member or, you know, like to being like da-da-da-da-da and being almost too bossy or too, so it's a really hard thing to fucking juggle. And then so you've got social media. Yeah. You've got this person at home cuddling her child and her story. You've got, and you can't, I'm pretty good at not comparing, but I have moments where I sit there and I'm like, ugh. Yeah. But you just create a lifestyle that works. You don't have, again, mindset. You just have to make it work.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about it. It won't be forever, you know, as well. Like while you're trying to achieve and get to those goals and stuff like that, sometimes you do have to take sacrifices as well. So I even like, say, for example, my role and what I do is dependent on being there to help people. And I can't just, if something pops up like a game or something like that, I've got to actually book it out, like seriously, months in advance. So I'm not going to be here. Yeah. So it makes it very challenging for something on the fly. Like if I'm juggling myself, I'm actually creating this huge list of jobs for my team and what that creates and everybody else that's created about there. So but the other thing is when I am there, I'm just like, you know what, that's just one of those things. And I've had chats to lots of my clients about this who are very big in business and stuff. They're like when we've grown up, one of my regrets has been like I haven't been there for my kids as much, and the kids don't actually. They're like, look, you've worked so hard for us, and they can
sometimes see it. I think they can look up and see it, and I think
the main thing is they need to know they're loved. You know.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. That's the main thing.
If they feel that if they feel like they have, and I say this a lot to like people around me, but safe space is fucking important.
Oh, so important.
If a child, Louis will come home to me. And his dad is honestly such a cool dad. But I would say, maybe because I'm the mum, I'm the safety, like the emotional safety parent. Mm-hmm. So usually I'll go to his dad's for a few nights, come home, and he's with me the rest of the time. He usually comes home. He's definitely better now that he's 6, but for a couple of years, I honestly thought it was just a normal thing. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, it's a breath of fresh air to not have to deal with that as much. But he did it recently. And again, because I hadn't had him for very long, like for a period of time. Anyway, he would come home and just have a bit of a meltdown basically, and just one thing would trigger him, then the next, then before you know it, you're trying to work, emails, calls, whatever the hell it is, also parent, and you've got this fucking screaming child, no one's in the house, no one's helping you, and you're just, of course, you know, that's normal, but like, you're just like, shit, and it's a very intense, and to be able to create a safe space for your child, where you're not going to fucking berate them or scream at them or abuse or whatever. Just a safe, quiet space where they can do that. They can self-regulate, bring themselves down to earth again. It's really hard. And I think not a lot of people can do that consistently.
It takes a lot of awareness. Yeah, and naturally, especially when you're being a parent, I'm sure a lot of parents will resonate as well. Your natural response will be like, oh, why do this? And then you're like, actually, okay, what would they really need? And I often say this, like, what would I need in this moment if I was younger? So I'll go through and I'll think about it like that, and I'll be like, oh, okay, definitely know I don't need to be screamed at.
That's when
those
you're
little
very
things.
patient, you have a level of patience and tolerance. I think what I found hard was, like, I'm a patient person, but I can have a short fuse. And I think I would have a short fuse at times where I couldn't identify his triggers. I would be triggered because he's my mirror, right? He's feeding off my energy. So he would be doing shit and I would be, in my mind, like, fuck, just reactive every moment. I'd be like getting really frustrated. And then I realised, hang on a second. Like, you just realise you hack it and you're like, hang on, and he's literally feeding off me.
Yeah. It's that elevation there. And I find even just by doing that, like, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. My wife's not perfect. None of us are perfect. Like, even just going through, and when we have had those slip-ups, even going, hey, actually, hey, look, I'm really sorry, Harper.
Yes, you can't sweep under the rug. Everyone does this.
I'm really sorry, Harper. I got really upset about that. I got really triggered. I should have really not communicated like that. It's okay to feel like this and you feel like this. And just even communicating that, it's like, oh, okay. So, and then...
Acknowledgement's massive, I think. That teaches children accountability. And it's so important to do that, because if they can't be like, how many people would you guys have gone to school with, or people that you know that are like bratty, maybe even greedy, not accountable in the fucking slide? You could not sit down and have a straight conversation with them and be like, you know what, you do, you couldn't do it. It would just blow up. That's what you're kind of teaching your kid if you...
Yeah, if you're sharing your emotions and you can't actually even share it in a safe space where without it blowing up in your face, it's like, whoa.
You have to turn around as the parent and say, look, I've had many of those conversations with Lloyd, believe you me, and I'm happy I have though. I treat him like an adult at home. So, I mean, he knows his place, but part of your question before, I make him, I guess I do. I make him work with me. I've no shit taught him how to, and he doesn't know how to do all of this, but to a degree, I've taught him how to cook, taught him how to clean, I've taught him how to do shit. Yeah. He sits in my car if I'm like just stuff about cars, little, like, obviously he's not driving a car by himself, but just basically how to do life, but baby style, so they can educate themselves and it's fun for them. They love that. They love the attention. They love like soaking up the knowledge and stuff. And he loves working now. I'm not joking. He will sit on my laptop and just be typing and scribbling on my iPad with my iPad pen. And I think it is, honestly, for me, that is so rewarding. And that's when I can sit back and be like, you know what, like, I try my best and there's something coming out of it. Even if it's not full 100% attention, there's something somewhere there that he's hopefully going to take and like learn from later and stuff. So
it sounds like you're doing a good job. When we go back to what we were just saying before, like we've said it before, in our parents' day, and even a lot of when we were born, was sit down, don't speak unless you're spoken to.
Authoritative.
And that's how everyone was raised. So going through all of, it's kind of our generation now that is starting to break that. And I was probably a lot of that too to a certain degree. And now as I'm getting
100%.
older, that it's opening. But I think that's because what did they used to do? There was no podcast, there was no social media. People would get home, they'd watch Channel 1, they'd watch Country Calendar, they'd go to bed.
It's just rigid. It's in its ways. This is how it is and this is how it's going to be. And
whereas,
now we're like, hang on a second.
Now there's these conversations, you know. By the end of next week, 100 people will listen to this and 100 people might be like, fuck, that's me. And I might have got something from this conversation, hopefully.
You'd hope so. It's amazing how many people, whether it's one person or 100 people, whoever, it doesn't really matter about the quantity, but the like quality of resonance almost. You have something to say. Like I was so nervous to a degree to sit down, partially not in the slightest, and partially because I was like, is anyone actually going to give a fuck about what I have to say? But if one single person, literally just one, takes anything from even the parenting things we were talking about, applies that, and that changes the way they parent their child, like how cool is that? Without sounding like almost embarrassing, like, oh, I've made a difference or whatever. But if one single, like resonance is just so important, and I think that's the thing with communication or like instant access to communication these days because of technology, we can do that now, which is really good. And people can pick and choose. Like, I just find it so weird how many people listen to podcasts. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just a thing now. It's like, oh, I listen to this podcast in the car. I remember when they first started coming out and I was like, podcast, all right. And then now I'm like, podcast. It's so
what's
good.
the next one?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I've read, I think, 6 books this month now because of Audible.
Oh,
So, you know, just rolling through, smashing books.
I wish I could do that. I struggle
away from
listening to the books, but it's the best idea. It's such a, there's an app called Headway, and I can't remember what it is. It might be like psychological sort of like information versus and business all wrapped up in one. But I bought that app, and I am literally yet to sit down and properly read through even like one of them, but I've skimmed a lot of the content. Sure. And I think even out of principle, I wouldn't like to condense down books and not even do that. But I think it's great if you're busy and if you still want to be like, you know, and taking a bit of information and like learning things, it's pretty good.
I won't take anything in if I read it on paper because my mind will just go straight to something else.
Oh, interesting.
So
I can't
if I
listen
read
to anything.
Yeah, I can read like a page and be like,
wanders. I'm exactly the same, but mine wander if I hear.
Yeah. No, I'll read an entire chapter and go, fuck, what was that about?
That's
no
so
idea.
frustrating, and you've wasted all that time.
Yeah.
You go back and you're like, what the heck? And or even when you're caught on one sentence or one page and stuff. But I
get sleepy and I need a nap.
That's a good hack for sleep.
You start reading about 8.
No, literally. I swear to God.
That's true.
I will, if I know I'm tired, I'll start reading. If I know I'm not going to take it in, but I want to read, but I know I need to sleep,
start reading.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's important kind of learn how you learn as well. And
it's another thing.
Different aspects.
Generational. People know this now.
Yeah.
People are I do this with my staff, actually. That and personality quizzes, I think it's so, so important. But it's only our generation that would have really, a mix between our generations, not at all our parents.
Unless you're like a Tony Robbins or anything like that, kind of started the pioneers from that kind of generation, and wouldn't been very well known unless you were actually going to these big events and
when had money and of course.
The money, the business, and all those things. It would be very, very challenging for the average everyday person to be kind of accessing that information. So, say for example, like this podcast for us, the Common Unity, has already been my hugest tick as to how impactful it is. My overall goal was for it to be super impactful to one person. This one person, I've actually had multiple people, but this one person at this one time on this podcast, I heard that and I really needed to hear that at that time. It was like, boom, straight away. That's the whole reason why we're doing this.
Again, it's resonance.
Cool.
It resonates with you. It's your purpose and why you set out to do it in the first place.
And it's like, say for example, like I guarantee there'll be a mum that's a businesswoman and really going through, but they're a mum at their core too. So it's got that balance between being a mum and being successful at business and having both feet and so the both parts and just making it work for you. And they'll take things from this. It'll be huge, which is really cool. So I massively thank you for being super honest and straight up about that, because it's so cool.
You have to be. I've always been like that though. I've always found it really hard to interact with people that were the nice types that would like everything's always good, fine, dandy, whatever. I found that so hard to break through that barrier. That nothing resonated with me in the slightest. I was like, why would you not just say,
Yeah.
But I get called rude all the time. Some people think I'm so abrasive because I'm just like, whatever.
I get it too.
I kind of
get
like
it quite
it.
a lot. You're too blunt. You can't say that. I was just telling them the truth.
but you know what? So it can be misinterpreted as well for actually trying to help, because it depends on the space of frame of where people are, if they want to hear it as well. So if somebody tells me something which they have and they do, I'm like, okay, if depending on my space will depend on my outcome and what I perceive it as. So if I'm like, oh, no, not, and I'm defensive, I'm not really in that space of growing. Oh, well, guess what? When this is what I really like. I like this one example, and it's a bull which scrunched up, and you know what? If I put this can, okay, so on that can, it says one thing to you. On this can, it says one thing to me. You can argue from your point of view what's on that can, but on my perspective, the can is completely different. And we can argue black and blue, but guess what? If what I have communicated something, even if it wasn't from my perspective, come across in a particular way that you interpreted it that way, and yes, it might be your history and lifestyle and the factors that led up to that, maybe I could look into how I can actually even communicate that better, where it's at that point where, okay, actually maybe I could have communicated that a little bit differently. It's not being a pushover as well, but it depends on the situation. But as well, but one thing that's really important to know, you're like, I might be short and abrasive, but hey, it's coming actually from a good place where I'm actually trying to help. And if I was skiing that, it'd go through. So you could just go, actually, maybe I could, hey, if this was happening to me, I'd like to know this. And you just shift the communication aspect too.
Do you know what's amazing is some people, do you find that you can go through periods of time in life where you, I don't know why I keep saying this, but again, resonance is just so important. You literally don't resonate with a fucking soul. Like you don't gel with, it's like you're not heard, like you're not even, you just can't quite click. I don't know what it is. And then it takes that one fucking person. Oh yeah, straight away, like, oh yeah, no matter how blunt you are, no matter how abrasive or whatever, rude, however you may be perceived by other people at times, and it resets you and you're like, oh,
yeah, it's
God.
like
you're back to your old like jig, like your old self, and it's just you slide back into that rhythm of just being you basically, but you start questioning yourself and going, oh God, like is, you know, am I too XYZ, which that is something I struggle with so much, like being too much as a woman. You would not believe the amount of boyfriends that have been like literally like, you're way too much, Mira. I look back and I'm like, thank fuck, honestly. Thank God I got out of there. Like, I'm happy. But again, woman, small, like bite size, please. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And I think to be able to step out of that and literally be, and this sounds so fucking cheesy, but unapologetically and completely authentically yourself. I don't even know if I know one person that can actually do all of those things, but if you can try, that's where you're winning, and you don't have to have this almost like guard. Like I've been called guarded so much just from just being a bit like almost hard as well on the outside, because you're just so, you just don't know what you're going to get from what person, and you're a female and you're in business or whatever. It's tiring. Well, and you're just like, you don't know what to fucking...
Nor are you going to go around with an open heart either. So it needs to have the right personality to kind of bring that out too. So
it's a double... It's a growth. You've got to do both at the same time if you can. I think that's the beauty of being a woman, is you can create things and you can give that nurturing, you can give that love and that softness, but you can still put people in their place. You can tell people where to go. You can absolutely do both. And you've just got to learn how to do those two things at once. It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, like I can definitely say I can tell I can tell you now. I've not been angry or grumpy at my team, but they know when I might not be happy with something, and I'm not in a where it's not going to create an issue or a thing, but they know I might be like... That
means you've reached a very healthy level of trust and communication with your team. That's rare. How many people do you know of your friends, whoever, who work for a company and there's bitching about... I know for a fucking fact my staff don't... I highly, probably very rarely would bitch about me. We have very open book. They know exactly what I expect and what it's okay and not okay. And it's so easy. And you say to them in the interview, you're like, this is it. This is what you're going to get. If it doesn't work for you, honestly, that's great. That's fine. But this is fucking not the place for you. You need to go somewhere else. And if it does, awesome. Like, let's do it. Yeah. And that's obviously what you've created. And it's a really hard thing to do. Most people have no idea. They're not switched on with that. They don't honestly know how to build that sort of team.
I think everyone's worked for that boss too, that when the boss walks into the door, the whole team, the whole dynamic changes.
Like literally just
dumps, and then they're like,
down.
oh fuck, what's it going to be today? Did he ever fight with the missus? Whatever, there's always something.
Well, that's about being your unapologetic self as well, and that's why I'm in the practice and I'm cracking jokes and there's laughter. And if I want to do a funny board out the front, guess what? I'm going to do it because I'm working because, and I've said this before, like doesn't matter how much money I've got in the bank, I'm still going to be adjusting people. You know, that's where I found
people can sense that from you probably.
Yeah,
and that's why you can walk around and do that with your team and with your clients, and that's why you have the vibe that you have in your practice.
And we enjoy it, and like it's quite a nice space because we're big on protecting the space and energy in the team, and we can tell if somebody on the team's having a bit of a hard time. So guess what? We'd be like, we talk about it, and it's almost like a little family. Like people in the team, they're going to naturally have hard times and challenging times. It's just what happens, and we just talk about it.
It's necessary, I think.
Yeah, but then what happens is when it's game time, okay, cool, we've talked about it, we've communicated, okay, let's work towards our goal to keep that vibration high and keep moving forward, and then we navigate it again if we need to. It's not right, it's actually even acknowledging it as well, so which is cool. So yeah.
So we've had a good chat. There's probably part of the story that you're super passionate about we haven't touched on. Do you want to talk about what else you've done in property?
Yeah, for sure. So I was just thinking as you were talking then about how that ties in almost, I think, like with your energy and especially in the property game.
Yeah.
I think I hope this comes across in a humble way, I hope, but like I'm proud that I'm basically just proud I persevered at times where I think some people would have absolutely crumbled with resistance in a really cunty way from maybe like just people, systems, how things run, competition. I love competition, but I maybe even just like maybe peers - someone who's literally in the same domain as you, that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess it was weird. I was thinking about this today coming in. I was like, where the hell did I even start getting the idea of wanting, and I still find it so cringe saying it, but literally wanting to get into property investment, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when Lou was tiny, I was always scouring on trade. I knew I wanted to have property in the future anyway, probably when I was young, but it wasn't like business was a thing, and it always will be the thing for me, the clincher. Yep. Or like, just the passion point. But property is just different. It's just, there's something that just gets you going about property. It's a really enjoyable and such a diverse, it's a game. Like it's a literal, unfortunately.
It's Monopoly.
Honestly,
it's Monopoly.
It is a fucking game. Yep. Like it's not even funny. So when he was little, all I could afford, I sat down one day and I was like, okay, I've got, I think 11K in stocks. I had literally boarded the shit out of my house. I had 2 boarders in a 3-bedroom house with a child. I had a cabin on the back, threw someone in there, like to get everything I could, was working so long, like such long hours when Louis was like 2, driving across town super early in the morning to beat the traffic with a kid who was probably exhausted, had just gone out of, like it was a fucking hard grind. It was hard. I look back now, I've honestly dissociated from it so hard because of like the exhaustion points I was at. Don't get me wrong, I did love it to a degree. I think the level of energy, you have to just have the energy, and again,
it's almost survival too. When you think about it, it's massive
I was living in survival mode for a very, very long time, and I think I'm learning again, hence the no drinking, to not do that. And I think so. I'd saved this money, I had stocks there, and I was like, surely there's no way I can buy a property, no way. And this is going back like, so if Louis 6 now, I don't know, 4 years ago or something, maybe even 5 years ago. And I was like, nah, like I could never do that, no way. Like, negative shit about myself. I had all those thoughts going through my head, and I thought, nah, you know what, I'll have a look and I'll see. And I could. And I was like, I can do this. So that's when I started scouring trade. I don't know what it is about this damn place, but I kept coming back to Tokoroa. Houses there were 100K, 180K, somewhere.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, of course, back then. Massive sections. And I had never ever researched property, which is a joke considering who, like family and things. So I was like, well, all you need to do is renovate it. And one thing I did have a really clear understanding of was market rent. Everywhere in Tauranga, I'd lived all over the show. I'd lived in like shitty ass little, like one in particular, very average place with Louis, just because that's all I could afford. That was with his dad. Then we split up 2 different directions, 2 different places and things. So I was constantly reassessing where I was going to live, how much it was going to cost me, blah, 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 blah. And I just knew out there, I was like, hang on, if I can buy that for 150 grand and I can, you know, rent it out for $300 a week, 350, like straight off the bat then. And that's something property management was like, I'd like to say in the 5% mark, like basically half of what it was now, kind of like everything, right?
Yep.
So that's when I got the ball roll. I literally sat, and I'm a big iPhone, like Apple person. I sat on my iPhone, opened up the Notes app, love the old Notes app, and I was like, I started writing out a grid or like a graph or table, sorry. I did a table of purchase price, market rent, yields, like it probably didn't even make a lot of sense, but it was very structured.
Enough
so it was
for you,
basically like if I'm buying a house for 100K, 150, 170, 200, 250, whatever it was, and this is the market rent. So I started like trying to make connections with numbers, and then it wasn't until I bought the business and I had I wouldn't say a push from my partner at the time, but I know that the partner I had at the time, we connected on a level with property. He had done what I was intending to do before I did it.
Yep.
And that like insight and that knowledge was like quite literally changed my life. I mean, had I not have met him, I would not have done what I've done now. It wouldn't have, well, I mean, not now anyway, I imagine. I don't know.
It's just learning at certain lessons at
Exactly.
certain times.
And it was quite literally the exact strategy that I use, which I didn't realise I had almost like formulated in my mind, or I thought I had. I was like, okay, if you buy this and you renovate it and you can somehow, I didn't understand what leveraging was.
Yep.
It's not that I just didn't know it. I didn't really get it from the bank's perspective, or like I didn't know the ins and outs. But I was like, and surely I could somehow get that money back. So I had the right thinking. I just didn't know what I was doing. And this person came along and I was like, he's talking my language. Like finally, it was a breath of fresh air. And I was just in this weird place in my life where all I did was work.
Yeah.
Billy was with, like, I was with my child all the time, but I just felt like I was never there. But I was so fucking desperate to like get ahead and be like, and I don't know why, but I think it was just like my mission at the time. And so I had, honestly, will never forget this. So I sat there one day at work and I was like, I was scouring Trade Me and I saw this deal come up. And I was like, I'm going to get that. And I did. And I remember gut.
Did you already have the place in Tokoroa?
That was the place.
That was the place. And
That
so
was
it's
my
the
first
place.
place.
Yeah.
I had a gut feeling. It was this fucking weirdo greenhouse that was like disgusting, cockroach infested, ugly, barely, or sort of barely livable really. It was the kitchen. It was I walked in and I was like, I wasn't coping. It wasn't nice.
Yep.
And I've seen far worse, but for me then, I was like, ugh. But I saw that first photo
Boom.
and there was some weird thing. I was just like,
Get it.
100% caught up, made the offer. I didn't say to him at the time, I didn't say nothing. It was this weird, like silent fucking point in my life journey. I was like, I need to do this. And, funny story. So the agent who sold it to me was, so she was so lovely, but I would not get her to sell my house. Like she caved far too early, far too soon. She could have worked for the vendor 50,000 times more than she did. And I adore her. I call her when I'm out in Toke and I go there fairly, not so much at the moment. I was out there in the weekend actually, but I hadn't gone in like several months, but usually I'd go like once a month and go hustle, have a look around all the deals and stuff and whatever. So I always call her and I'm out there or text her and I'm like, hey, like, da-da-da. I won't say her name, but she's like great to me. And I think that was the most beautiful experience really as a fucking female, starting this shit out, not knowing honestly what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah.
And someone like me who will like jump into a project like balls deep, but not have any idea. I was like, oh God, I did not know what I was getting myself into. But I literally went out there in the winter with Louis, bought him out, my Greyhound and my truck, and just renovated the house. Like I've got videos of me installing fucking LEDs, like I it was intense. It was like, I loved it. I loved the noise in my head being quiet because I was physically like,
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. It really is.
Yeah, it is rewarding, and you've always got the next project. I was driving all over the bay, hustling stuff as cheap as I could get it, but like the highest quality. I've always had a big thing about quality, so I'm absolutely no skimp on things, but I'm smart with stuff. So if I can get something for a deal, I'll fucking be in there and I'll go and get the deal if I can. But I don't want to skimp on the quality either. So, for example, I drove to fucking Cambridge. It was a storm. I unplumbed a fucking vanity from a house that was going to get demolished, a massive 2-story house. I walked up there. I didn't even have half the tools. I had the trailer. I don't know what I was doing. I had to call a builder friend and be like, what do I do? Call a plumber. What do I do? I got the general gist, and quite frankly, it wasn't actually that hard. It wasn't actually that hard, but it was fucking heavy. I had to get the guy downstairs. He was trying to like get this house gone, like pull out the last like the chattels and stuff. He didn't care about me. He's like, take the cash and get the fuck out of here. Or like, you know, like he just he didn't care about me. Take the thing, sorry, the vanity. But yeah, so it just a lot of hustle went into that house, and so I to this day when I drive past, I just drove past, you know, recently. Like I just look at it and I'm like, oh. But it was funny the gut feeling that I got. I got that gut feeling. I stayed real quiet and didn't say a word. I called up my parents later. I didn't tell them for ages. I was
that
like,
you bought a house.
I kind of bought a house. And they were like, the fuck? I was like, I just bought a business.
You know what the cool thing is as well? You didn't actually say it to anybody for them to put their own opinion on.
That's why.
Buying,
That's why I knew I'd pussy out. I knew I would. I knew I'd overanalyze it because I overanalyze.
Oh, don't do that.
Everything.
Why? It feels right
Yeah,
to
and
me.
you sit on it.
Don't do that.
You sit on it and you're like, oh. So I tried to like cream the Reno as much as I could. It was a funny time. So I had the neighbour who was like pretty out there, like gang member. I don't even know where he's from. Like I think he was like a Black Power member or something. He came over home. He would have mad bust ups with his son on on the property. Hardcore scrapping. He'd come over stoned, drunk, but he was always there. Always reliable. He used to be a handyman. Yeah. No shit. And he was helping with everything. He was so, like, the journey was hilarious. It was a fucking shit show. But I honestly, it's like outrageous fortune, renovation styles, times 10. It was hilarious. And then I'm sitting there trying to fucking renovate shit like I know what I'm doing, which I do not know what I'm doing. Like, how do I know how to fucking, like, plaster, paint? But I've always loved getting my hands dirty, so I just gave it my best fucking crack. Like, you know, had Justin over there, the neighbour. Who else did I have? Some old guy from the men's shed, those, like, organisations. So I was chatting to someone trying to get a builder. Couldn't find anyone, a proper builder. She's like, call up the men's shed. I call him, and straight away, gut feeling on the phone, I was like, this guy's cool. Short old guy, like big pot belly, like, he was like, yeah, mate, I'll come out. To this day, I still talk to him.
Yeah.
He was like another father. He was fucking awesome. He had my back. He was always there. This is a guy who can barely walk and barely bend over, but will drink you under the table. Like, hilarious. His old friends came over, a cheap plumber, cashy, this, that, like, the shit that I took from that, again, connections, and he's funny, like, for who he is as a person in his community, he knows a lot of people. So it was quite fascinating being like, wow, like I was almost rudely like taken aback for having judged, like, or no, like I felt a bit rude, but so a funny project. And then I got a valuer in who was amazing. So she came in, valued it, and I bought it for $239, and I got it valued like quite high, like it was just like sitting under 500. It was pretty good valuation. So I was like, okay. So I went to the bank and I was like, I want some more money. And they were like, fine. So they gave me a top up of 150 grand. And funny, okay, so even getting the money for that mortgage, I shouldn't have got it. BNZ,
the first
I don't give a fuck what you say. I've got a really good relationship with my bank, actually, by the way. I talk like this with them. And so my bankers are so cool. I fucking love them. They're really cool people. They're such a good company, BNZ. Stuff like the perks, the way their systems, like literally I've had these long conversations with bankers there, like they
love it, eh?
They really do.
That's
They're
rare
really
in
looked
the banks.
after. So they stay there for ages. So you build rapport with people who have knowledge and experience in lending. And I'm just I think this is the only reason why I've somehow managed to make this work is I'm just curious. I just ask
Ask
a
questions.
fuckload of questions, and I probably just don't realise that some people just don't do that. So I would ask the bankers and be like, if this can't work, can I do this? If this can't work, can I literally call them? Like my phone log, BNZ, business banking, every fucking time. They know, hey, Nan, how are you? Like having a chat with, they know who it is, what you want. And anyway, so that first banker I got was very conservative. He didn't want to give me the money. No fucking way. I thankfully got into like, this sounds a bit like cheesy, but like a bit of a big dog guy, like someone who was up there.
Yes.
Who was like really looking after basically all the, you know, BDMs or like the business managers and things. He got everything through. He was fucking amazing. And if it wasn't for him, there's no way I would have got that lending. Anyway, so sorted that out with him, got my top up. And I'd seen these units before, but someone had sent them to me and was like, check these out. And hence where the social housing comes in. I had like got these arrangements going on and I was like, sweet, and made it work. They wanted to take on Kawerau, did that. So I couldn't buy the first 5 units. They were selling these units in blocks of 5, but they didn't want to, like I couldn't buy that because that was going to branch into commercial lending. I was teetering on the edge of trying, but the valuations were so expensive, like they were like almost triple what I was paying for residential ones for 5 of them for almost a solid no. And I was like, that would be basically, even for me, I was like, that's just not even risky, it's just stupid. So I ended up nominating on 2 and I kept 3 of them. And for the true, I hate to say this about them because I love them, but the true pieces of dirt that they cash flow beautifully. They are like whoppers cash flow wise. They're great. You couldn't honestly, for debt to like return ratio, you can't. I honestly would love for someone to show me a better deal in New Zealand. I genuinely would like to know North Island, even the Bay. I don't think that would even be the case. So that's quite cool. So I think it was it wasn't an ego thing for me, but I realised it became that when people would ask me, but where have you bought? Remember, so I'd say, Kawerau. Oh, Kawerau. Oh, and I'd be like, well, fuck you for starters, you bitch. Like, what do you know? Honestly, like, how can you so you have that and you start getting that like guard again and you get a bit annoyed.
I've got this client who drives all the way from Kawerau and he's the nicest guy. He's awesome.
Because you're from Kawerau, you're not going to be nice. Like,
that's not meaning, but this is what
That's what shit I'm talking about.
No, but it's not me.
Filming it.
But it's not me.
No, it was you. You're surprised he's nice because he's from there.
No, I know he's the thing. But it's not a surprise for me. I grew up in rough areas. So my neighbours, I read people for who they are. So not because of where they're from. Because
so rude that they just don't catch themselves. So I started getting frustrated. I was like, so I started doing this thing where I'd almost go to validate myself, but I'd see I was doing that. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to let you think I'm a piece of shit. That's fine. And then in 2 years' time, when I've got 20 properties, and you're working for a motherfucker who's a dickhead to you and you have to get a 10-minute lunch break but you were late because you were 11 minutes late and then you get in trouble for that, I'm going to be sitting there when I'm not turning up to my job and I'm not going to give a fuck about what you have to say. You know, like you just start not caring.
Well, you just know.
Oh, sorry, you go.
No.
I was just going to say you need to listen to James Wallace's podcast because you and him are so similar. You're almost saying the same sayings. Like it's so fucking cool to watch, and he's one of my best mates.
Oh, true.
But you know, he's
interesting.
like it's exactly like he was talking. You know, like female version.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to meet him. Yeah,
yeah. He lives in Christchurch in Auckland.
That are like similar in how they operate or how they are. But yeah, I don't know. I think.
Well, you just need to know that you're on the right path and be like, you know what? Nothing's actually taking me off this path. I know in my gut.
It's a validation thing though, right? Because in society, and again, this is where sometimes the male-female thing comes in and the woman in business and how it's really different there to a degree. You are taught to, like, for example, I don't know, get married, have your kids, whatever the hell it may be for your gender. You've been given these allocations of like levels of what you're going to achieve and validation and stuff. So even for a small or medium or a big achievement, if you have someone coming back to you and challenging that achievement, you're just like, it takes a lot of like internal stability to be able to step back and be like, I don't give a fuck. And now I don't. And I still kind of didn't then. And part of joke with them, be like, yeah, and I'd be like, but you know what? I'm not laughing because I'm making all the money. You know, like, so you kind of go back to them and give them a bit of kickback and you're like, oh. But, yeah, so anyway, did those. And again, funny, renovating those. I don't want to bore you guys, but it was a funny job. Like getting the tenants out, the rubbish they left behind, the cockroach infestations time too, German cockroaches, the trainers were pretty good out there. Funny you say that about like nice people. They were really good. Yeah. They were great out there.
Just straight up.
Yeah. It was a lot of negotiation. I think by that point I had dealt so much with agents, contracts, whatever. And I'd met some really cool people that I, to this day, am in good contact with that I respect massively. Honestly, like they're like not my gods, but they're like people, honestly, they tell me to jump. I'm like, how fucking high do you want me to jump? You know, I think by that point I'd met those sorts of people and I think I found my groove and I was like, I don't give a fuck how I look, how small my assets look or whatever. I just knew what for me resonated was cash flow. Because in a downward turn, you want to go and have your big fancy blue chip ego house, go for it. And how high is your interest rate going to be on your fucking $1.2 million house? Because the rent's not going to be covering that shit. You're going to be covering that. And people don't fucking get it and it drives me mental. I'm like, oh.
We were fortunate enough. My wife and I bought at the same time. We used to
Really?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
4.5, almost 5 years ago.
Well, you guys I bought just after I got the business, which was 2 years ago, but I started looking then. But 4 years ago, you were doing well buying then.
Yeah.
It's very lucky.
Well, how we bought then was we bought... so we've looked previously, it said affordable country character was on the listing, and then when I've called up before, this was at the time before, it was getting up there, but it wasn't stupid. And I was like, okay, affordable country character. I mean, like, because when I've called up about other listings, I was like, that wasn't affordable. Who are you fooling? And then when I called up, they were like, oh, the start price is offers over 560. I was like, what?
Where was this?
Just in Lower Kaimais.
Oh, so same house that you're in now, right?
We'll be there forever.
Tauranga. But that's fucking mental though.
Yeah.
Like how crazy is that you bought a house for... when I hear someone's bought a house in the 5s, I'm in Tauranga. I'm actually right now working on a deal in the 5s in Tauranga. I'm working on it. I'm fucking sitting there like a little shark and I'm waiting.
There's one on Waihi Road, isn't there?
It's not that one.
There's one there though. Because I drove past it the other day. It's actually got the price on it.
The one I'm looking at, and I'm not going to say anything about it because someone will
go
look
ahead.
it up.
Yeah.
But it is like the equivalent of, it should be selling for much more than that. And the rental capacity, the yield capacity on it is fucking massive. If you bought that place, like massive. It's
That's one we
huge
talked about,
home and whatever. So there's an odd place scattered now, like especially now, everything's dropping a little, or not a little, but there are properties in the 5s, of course, but it's kind of...
Yeah, but that's the thing. People
Exactly
don't hard work pays off, like how you've learnt with that little lesson, and people from the get-go want to they care too much about what other people think.
That's what it is. It's ego.
So, we wanted we had a few things we wanted. We wanted 10 hectares if we could.
That's so specific. We wanted a few things.
Yeah, we wanted a few things. So we wanted 10 hectares. We wanted a do-up project.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah, we wanted a do-up project. So like a house, like an old RSA building, an old villa or an old church with some land. And around the area that we are. So we used to drive down Belk Road every Sunday. We used to love it. It used to be just our thing. We wouldn't know it was there, but we'd just always drive down. We loved it. And it ended up manifesting, one could say, everything except for the 10 hectares. So
what did you land on?
Just under half a hectare. But it's...
I was mentally preparing, but I was like, be nice. I was preparing for like a solid 4. Like, fucking what is that?
It was
You can't even have a vegetable garden. Shit.
it's a huge.
Oh, it's so mean. You have your garden.
Half a hectare, not half an acre.
It's still it's a good size section.
It's a good size section. It's huge. Well, it's huge compared to
what we live in. Yeah, I wouldn't want to look after all of it.
Yeah, fair enough. When it's that size, it's like painful, too painful to like.
Yeah.
So it ended up being that was the only thing we skimped on, but everything else tick, huge ticks, like massive. It was a 160-year-old villa. Yeah. Like, where can you find that? It's like the opportunity to buy it. It was amazing. It was perfect. The bones were phenomenal.
If it was 10 hectares, it would have been too big for you anyway. So to be honest,
exactly.
the half a hectare, it's enough for you to do stuff with, but it's not too painful to look after. So at least it's like something for now. It's
worked out perfect because that was actually all the amount of land with the amount of time that we've got that we can actually manage and enjoy.
Yeah, of course.
Anything bigger would have been too much. So we wouldn't have been able to restore the property and
how awesome that you got that. It's cool. Especially if it's like a character sort of home. It's hard to find them in Tauranga, honestly. There's not many of them. And if they are, they're like, and there's sometimes the avenues over a mill, like, you know, pretty.
Yeah, way out there. So
well, it's not going to be like not an entry level or even like medium level entry level home for a first home buyer family. There's no fucking way.
So we've just made it a big family thing, and a little bit like how your story is as well, restoring it and getting mates, and we're doing things, and it's real cool. The people that you meet and the journeys it takes you on is really cool. But you got to really actually not the amount of times we've been told that, oh, don't do that. You can afford a nice, expensive house and stuff like that. I'm like, why don't you buy that? I'm like,
who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? I don't, honestly, the reason why I brought up that client about, you know how I was saying about the connections I've met at the salon. So, and that guy who's got the gold teeth, who he drives around an old ass truck, and he's just done so well. He doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. He doesn't give a fuck about it. He's got the most, I don't know what they are, but these 2 insanely nice cars in his garage. He owns a fucking ship out there on the port. He, like all the stuff, he owns a massive childcare centre, like blah, blah, blah. So basically he's kitted out, he's lived his life, he's done well, and he drives a piece of shit as a statement. And I was like, I aspire to have like the strength within my like self and almost that like restriction of ego to do that.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing to come by. I'm super materialistic too. Like I am a fucking Taurus. I love my shit. It's not so much, it's not...
we all love our shit, but...
Yeah. Well, but people are quite different. I mean, sure, in general, yeah, but I think I like, again, valuable, nice things. So it's not a quantity thing ever. It's a quality thing for me.
Yeah, same.
So I could go out and buy a whatever the fuck, but I don't. Like I literally sold down my truck to buy my next property. Like it just, ugh. So yeah, but I got that freehold, which was cool. So it's been a weird thing having, and a nice thing and refreshing. But that was like a bit of an ego crunch too, having to like make that decision about I'm selling my motorbike and I'm selling, like I had a $20,000, well not 20,000, but it was just under the $20,000 motorbike. And then I had my truck there. Yeah. If I didn't sell that, I wasn't buying that. So I just was like, well, I can be a fuckwit and ride around on my nice bike. I don't even have a license to ride. Or... Yeah, I just was so dumb, and I think that was an interesting point in my journey. I had 150k sitting there, and I should absolutely. I'm happy I bought that bike because again, I learned a few fucking lessons on that.
What brand bike was it?
I got an Aprilia.
I think I know who bought it.
You know him, actually, no,
yeah. I'm just like it just clicked.
Shell?
I was like, I only know one person. That
So I bought my first bike off him.
Yeah,
and I met him. Obviously, so I bought the bike of him and we got chatting. He's just a cool guy, so that was that. I didn't have any friends that rode motorbikes. I did not know what I was doing. All I knew was I had this money and I wanted to buy this bike. So I bought this bike off him and we just stayed like in contact. So I'd message him occasionally, be like, hey, like kind of embarrassed, like, hey, do you want to go for a ride with me? Like, I feel like a bit of a loser, but I was like, do you want to come and like, we'll go ride. And we did on the odd times. That was real cool. And then I sold that bike and eventually I got that next bike, which I crashed. Yeah. It was not ideal, but it was actually, the bike was absolutely fine. Well, the fairings were a bit fucked, but like, thank fuck, the bike was absolutely fine. I hadn't insured it, and like, that was fucking stupid. Like, that was a bad move. So I'm so happy I bought that bike. I had some like nice life moments there where I was like riding and I loved it and like felt peace in my heart. I felt so good. And I have not had that many of those moments in my lifetime. So I was happy about that. But I think, yeah, you fucking absolutely, when it comes to ego and it comes to money and you've like worked hard and whatever and you get money, it takes a lot of...
Yeah.
Well,
It was quite funny. I'm just going to touch on it. The only reason why I pieced that together, he said, he bought this bike off a female, and that's it. He didn't say your name or anything. I was like, it's around the same time that you're just talking about. And I was like...
Because I kept saying to him, I was like, just because it was so easy, I was like... And he used to say, like, I really like your bike. So I was like...
It's a cool bike.
It's a cool bike. It probably is a beautiful bike. So anyway, I said to him, I was like, do you want to buy it? And he said no. And then I got desperate. I was like, oh, I really want to get this unit. And so that's when I decided, I was like, oh, fuck it. And just messaged him. I was like, okay, I'll give it to you for this. And then if you can do some photography on the side as well. And he was like, yep, sweet as. And then that was that. So that was cool. But it was a weird exchange too, because like, I went from buying something off him to, selling something back to him as well. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, sorry.
No, all I was going to say is we've all been through, when you come from nothing, you start getting some money, you start getting all the shit that you always thought you wanted. And then you get to a certain point like, this didn't make me happy.
Do you know what's hard though is you have the fluctuation in moments of realisation. You have the moments where you've got the money there and you have your days where you're really sensible. And you still, like for me, super frugal, super fucking careful. And again, not at all tight. Like, I'll still buy a fucking $50 shampoo bottle and, like stuff
That's
you
standard
don't
for a
fucking
girl,
need
though.
to do.
Even Gav spends $50 on his.
There are girls out there with like fucking, handbags that are super expensive and they won't even buy. And I'm like, look after your shit. Like, there's a hair on your head. Like, look, so anyway. So my point being, I would have days of being incredibly careful and calculated, and then days of just like, I thought I was bipolar. I was like, someone needs to put me away and take my wallet. Not that I would go and buy lots of things all at once ever. It was never like that. I went in that fucking motorbike shop and is that my phone? I went in that motorbike shop and I was like, I want that one. How much is it? And he was like, da-da-da. And I was like, sweet. And he was like, have you got a license? Rude little prick. Asked me if I've got a license because I got a vagina. And I was like, how dare you?
Because I got a vagina.
I didn't have a fucking license either. I was like, oh shit. So anyway, I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm buying it cash. And I fucking bank transferred the money and I took the bike and I who the fuck does that?
Mike Tyson.
I just got home and the scariest part of that was that I felt so calm doing that. So I terrify myself because I'm like, the level of comfort I have of, yeah. So I think when it's property, it's scary because you could do some very fucking risky things where you can put yourself, you can get stuck in the mud pretty quick if you do the wrong thing. So I'm very lucky that the people I've had above me who have...
Nice guidance.
Yeah. They're hard people. They're hard. All of them are me? No. My second mum almost. So I didn't live with my family in my last year of school. She is like my literal idol of life. She's fucking amazing. Again, boss. Like she's so cool. Anyway, so she'd be one, but all of the others were men, which was really fascinating because they always held such encouraging space for me. They never shot me down, shat on me, or tried anything fucking greasy, which, again, as a female, you pick up on that.
Yeah.
Me? I don't know about others. I will sniff that out before I even fucking see your eyes. I'll be like, whether it's your body language or the way, whatever. I just get a vibe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just a hypersensitive person, but it really like works for me, and I function off that. If there's someone I know I can get a benefit from, and I was going to say the beauty industry and the property industry as far as knowledge goes, and if they're a bit annoying, like they're a little bit greasy but it's tolerable, I tolerate it. Exchange of knowledge. If that means I'm going to get further, when I say I'll do it, like I'll communicate with that person or learn about their experience or how do they deal with this deal, this sort of whatever. This sort of vendor, this type of settlement, I'll 100% put that on the back burner and not tell them to fuck off. And then there are people that are a bit painful. So far, I've had pretty good experiences, I think, and I've met some I'm so deeply privileged to have, met some of the people who have have been respectful and great. Like, thank God. So that's been definitely good.
Yeah, it's a challenging aspect, especially being attractive female in the space as well. You know, it's
people don't take you seriously, and they assume you. They make a lot of assumptions about you, I think. So you fight assumptions from day dot, from the start, which makes you extra spiteful, which puts you on your masculine energy straight away. So you're fighting, like, it's almost like fire with fire. And the best way that you can fight that really is by being really soft and like very feminine.
Yep.
It's just hard.
I
don't even know if I can do it, but that's the only way that you can. They realise from the vibe they're giving off how like icky it is, and it just peels off, and you just watch them like almost melt, and you're like,
Was how love breaks hate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
I said I don't love these guys.
No,
I
but,
totally get what
but
you're
when someone
saying,
comes to you and they're like, oh, you fucking
Yeah.
whatever it might
Yeah.
be, and you're like, are you all right, mate? Like, how
just
are
have
you?
to be-
And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Because they're expecting you to come back at them.
Gotta be
and-
tolerant and patient,
Yeah.
and just So
I think it's actually a great thing to be underestimated all the time. I absolutely
underdog.
you
love
don't
it.
say.
Yeah, I
You
love
play
it.
on that shit when otherwise, if I had nothing to gain from it, I would have been bailing these people up in a heartbeat. But like, yeah, you absolutely learn to be very tactful and calculate. And I mean this with a pure heart too. I totally mean this in the best way. So if there are any females or males out there too, how many guys out there are totally underestimated because they look a bit nerdy and like they might be, maybe they're tradies and they don't look like they have a lot of money. And agents are like, fuck you, you don't have money, go away. Like, whatever it is, it could be anyone. But I think at the moment still, particularly a lot of it is women too. So, you know, that just happens to be what it is.
Yeah, it's going to change a lot because the whole last 5, 6, 7, 8 years in real estate, no one's had to sell a house. They've just walked in and this is one for us, and they've taken it. Now real estate agents are getting hungry. They need to sell the house.
This is where you can almost this is where you get satisfaction in a bit of a fucked up way. So when you've had people in my position, if I've had people laugh at me, which I have, I've had people look down at me, tell me I can't do it, tell me I'm not going to be able to do it, be super condescending, patronising. Some agents are so fucking cunty with that.
Yeah.
I have a few I know a lot of agents out there, but like I have a few of my agent friends. They're so great and they're really clever. They know how to work people really well.
Yeah.
It's a game of the psyche and psychology. You just have to be careful with who you're dealing with on, you know, one-to-one basis almost. So anyway, if I've had really asshole people to deal with that, they have come, some of them. And I'm no hot shot in the slightest, but a sale's a sale, right? So if I've communicated with them in the past and I'm on their list, they're going to fucking call me. And they do.
Yeah.
They call you and they grovel. And I'm like, well, fuck you. And that's when you play. And that's when you play. Because you need to learn a lesson, you know. So I think you want to be respectful always, and you don't ever want to make people feel shit, but you can teach people lessons without being cunty too.
Yeah.
And I think that's one point where I've like had a few moments where I've been like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do it with my clients as well. I'm never like, oh, you're gonna, no, they're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna be mad with it. I'm not gonna be mad. You're just gonna learn a lesson, you know, like just with regards to different things, to what they can do or timing. When I suggested doing something, they don't.
well, life doesn't have to be like, there's a French expression, I guess you'd call it an expression, but it goes action, réaction, and it literally, it's like action versus almost like consequence, but it's, you can use it in expression in your parenting as a way to say, like, if you don't fucking listen, you're going to get a fucking smack on the head or whatever, you know. Anyway, so that's the expression. So I think it's basically not applying that to like life problems, whatever your mission is.
Yeah. No, they would have learned the lesson indirectly by going, oh, shoot, I really screwed up here. If they're even
but then that's what happens with money, though. You've got to be really careful with money. And I think, again, when you are underestimated, which I was, and it's funny because I'm actually not at all retired at all. But, I mean, on paper, I could have been. 100% could have been. I don't have to turn up to my salon at all. I could retire off this. It wouldn't be smart and I'd have not that much money, but on paper, I could do that.
Yeah.
So, like, But no, someone would look at me and be like, there's no fucking way, like that bitch just works in a jewellery shop or whatever the hell people think, I don't know. But like, you know, you just get so used to people being like kind of shitty about your potential or your capacity, and that's when you kind of like have, that just increases my burn. I'm like...
Because it doesn't actually cost that much to live. So if you've got $1 million and you put it in a 10% returning fund, you can earn your $100,000 a year for the rest of your life and retire. Like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think if you have like my tendency with money, which most a lot of successful people are a certain way with money, right? If you're careful, and if you're very like calculated with where you put your money and how you put, you can definitely make it work for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. So
to retirement by 30.
That's literally my goal in theory. I will never ever stop working. I wouldn't cope with life if I did. That wouldn't be a thing for me. I'd love to get into business, and I don't know why, but I'm gravitating towards like manufacturing and power and energy. Those two things, and I'm not entirely sure why. I'd love to, like my goal is to sit at home in front of my screens and like...
I powered that.
What's that?
I powered that.
No,
like
yeah.
with
But I was
energy.
literally about to say I do love... crypto fascinates me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying... And I have a lot of people out there that will... Like, they'll be mad that I say this, but it does fascinate me. And there was like a minute there where I was like, I'm enjoying this. I'd love to sit at
We've
home.
all dabbled in it. It's all fine.
It's not so much a dabbling. Like, I'd love to just be at home full time, just fucking with it, because I have a little bit of allocated money there just to almost test to see how big I can make it. Again, I'm no expert, but that's the sort of stuff I like to do. Like, just how far can I push the boundary
And learning
from
lessons.
home and mine? Absolutely. So I'd love to like delve into that, but I think I want to grow my portfolio without seeming boring as much as I can. While I can, like, now is the fucking time you want to be buying. Like, I literally called Jason like last week or something, and I was like, get me some money. Like, I want to, try and do that if I can. So that's like my little mission. I'll find out probably in like, I've got a little bit of a holding period where I have to wait probably 2 months, maybe, and then I'll know what I'll do. But I'm still going to be trying to like sell deals and stuff on the side, build up that, put that into it honestly is just a constant hustle. Otherwise I'll be broke.
So with all this kind of learning, so it's got a question we absolutely love to ask everybody. What's some advice you would give your younger self?
A younger self?
You're still young, but your younger self.
It's pretty much what I said before, I think.
You kind of covered it.
The takeaway, I think, it would honestly probably be that, because that's been my biggest challenge in my life.
Yeah.
If there's resistance, fucking push. You're going in the right direction.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I like that.
You've got to move towards resistance. The competitors out there and they're starting to shit on you or copy your stuff as well. That's more businessy. You are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Keep fucking going. People are bitter. People are jealous or showing jealous type behaviours. You're doing the right fucking thing. Like, keep going. Yeah. That's what I tell myself, because otherwise I just like shut down like I did in the past and go,
become a shell of what you are.
A little bit, yeah. Like, literally just shine your light. That actually, no, fuck that. That's what it would be.
Shine your light.
100%. But I refuse to use that expression, but just like just burn your energy. If you've got energy, like, I want to walk in a room sometimes, like, hey, da, 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 and I straight away I shut it down. I'm like, nah, too much for them. How fucking sad is that?
Yeah.
How sad is that? And you're doing that to yourself every day. And you are a literal mass of energy. That's what you are. Yeah. And you're shutting that down. Like, and that is the stuff that will, that's what you need to give you ideas to grow, to continue, to evolve, blah, 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 which stems into money, of course, which is what we all need to live. And you're shutting that down all the time. That's actually what I would say. That and then the resistance thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of the best actual compliment I've ever received, actually. And I actually really like it, just for the fact it was like, somebody was talking about me. I was like, he's really comfortable in his own skin. I was like,
there's no greater compliment than that.
I was like, that's really
so
cool.
powerful. It's powerful.
Like, that's really cool. And I feel like I am. I feel like I've got nothing to prove.
You are. You're very zen.
Yeah. So not even zen. I'm just happy. Like, it's always got things like one of my clients was saying, you're just happy. I'm like, well, yeah, shit happens, but guess what? There's always a lesson. I might not know it at this point, but there'll be a lesson in it in the future. And you get to that point, you're like, holy moly, okay, everything's a lesson. So, yeah, I just kind of go through. So, like, oh, it's kind of cool, but it's the exact same principle. So, yeah, all about that.
Gotta do it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No.
Well, I think we might need to wrap this one up because it's gone a bit over 2 hours. So.
Oh, wow, longest one yet.
I have
Effortless.
that habit.
And plus the hour before we started recording.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, sorry if I rambled, but
No,
You're
not
right.
at all.
No, there's some great lessons in all of that.
Yeah, no, I really thank you for your time, your energy. It was absolutely amazing. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
we'll have to make it an annual thing,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll either be bankrupt next year, or I've done well. So
Well,
Get her,
We'll see
get her
which
in the
way
room
it
with
goes.
Kirk Vosper
Yeah,
and
I
let
was
them
just
spar off with
about
each
to
other.
say, I was like, you and Kirk
Who's-
Vosper on one of our podcasts is doing the exact same thing,
Who's
which is
that,
amazing.
Kirk?
We'll talk about it off here.
yeah.
Yeah,
get
so-
it.
All right.
It's-
Well, thanks for joining us, and
Bye.
appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing how this one's received. Lovely. Thank you.